Hello everybody, my name is KingStix and today I'm going to show you how to play Zac Jungle like a pro. Now let me just say, Zac Jungle is by far one of my favorite junglers. Him and Rammus are probably tied for #1, and then Warwick's. As long as you're taking the right runes and doing the right jungle pass, there's really no reason why you should fall behind in the early game. And if you do make it to the mid-late game without falling behind, you'll be extremely powerful and have a lot of control over the way the game goes. You have a lot of mobility, you can gank from many angles after you are level 3. And if your team doesn't have that much AP or a tank, Zac is the perfect pick. Before I get into all the gameplay tips and jungle routes, we're going to go ahead and go over the masteries and items first. If you're not interested in runes, items, or skill order, I highly suggest skipping to 323 and that'll get you where you want to be. I see a lot of people take the wrong runes on Zac Jungle right now in the preseason 8, so let's go ahead and go over the ideal rune page for Zac Jungle. This is the ideal rune page for Zac. You're always going to want to take Resolve for your main tree, taking Aftershock, Fawn of Life, Conditioning, and Revitalize. Honestly, Revitalize is probably the most important one down the Resolve tree for Zac because it's going to be giving you a lot more healing off of your blobs, keeping you much healthier in the early, mid, and late game. For the secondary tree, Sorcery might come as a bit of a surprise. The main problem is the fact that there's really not very many good trees to take for a secondary. Precision's pretty useless, Domination's fairly useless, and Inspiration just sucks. So you're kind of just stuck with Sorcery, taking Ultimate Hat, putting your ult on a much lower cooldown after using it several times, and Transcendence, which is very useful in Zac. At the 10-minute mark, you will be getting 10% CDR, which is extremely useful. Zac's items for the most part are very stagnant. Always start Hunter's Talisman with Refillable Pot and Warding Totem. If the enemy team has a good mix of AP and AD, I would highly recommend getting a Warmog after you have your jungle item and Boots of Lucidity. I will usually rush straight for Cinderhulk before I even buy boots on Zac because he's not very dependent on his movement speed and ganks. He's only dependent on his E and trying to land it. If you're playing against an enemy team that has a whole lot of AP, I will usually go for Spirit Visage after these two items. These are essentially your core. And if I'm playing against an AD team after these two items, I will almost always go for a Thornmail because of the armor it gives and the important passives it gives as well. Zac does have a few really good optional items. If your team doesn't have a support champion like a healer or a shielder and you have a hyper carry AD carry, you might consider getting a Locket. It's very useful. So is a Knight's Vow. If you have a hyper carry AD carry, I would probably get both of these. If you don't have a hyper carry AD carry, I will usually get a second Warmogs, assuming I already have a Spirit Visage. The plus 200 base health regen and the loads of extra HP it gives is very useful on Zac. Keeps him alive in a fight, and it's honestly just really OP, especially before it goes true late game. If the enemy team has 2 or more crit based champions, I will usually go for a Randuin's Omen. And if the enemy team has something like a Malzahar that hits you with the same spell over and over in a short period of time, I'll usually go for an Adaptive Helm. And if the enemy team has a really good mix of AD and AP damage, and we don't have a tank other than me, I will usually go for a Gargoyle Stone Plate. Jungle Zac skill level order is always going to be the same. Start W, then take Q, and then at level 3 you are going to be taking E. You're going to want to max E first, max W second, and max Q last, and of course taking points in your ultimate whenever you can. Zac's first jungle route is actually fairly strong. You don't even need a leash, just start W, start on your raptors. Make sure you're hitting every single raptor with your W's AoE, that way you maximize your healing out of your Hunter's Talisman. This is very important. After you finish the raptors, take Q, walk past your red buff, and when you're on the outer edge of it, press W, auto attack, walk away, Q the golem, auto the red. I just canceled the red buff's auto attack and got an extra blob. Whenever you slam something together, you get an extra bloblet. So by doing this, I'm getting extra healing and I'm throwing off the red buff's auto attack, so I'm taking less damage and getting back more health. Gonna pop the plant, I'm gonna Q onto the big golem, auto attack the little one, slam them together, I'm taking less damage and getting more bloblets. I did save my smite because the big golem actually does more damage than the red buff. Don't use your smite on the red buff, save it for the big golem. Now I'm just going to beat down the rest of them and I'll be a little bit above half health without even having to use a refillable potion. Now I'm going to work my way down to the bot lane, just walk straight down here, get into the bush, save my E. Someone wasn't really paying attention, so it's kind of whatever. Land my knock up Q, hit the minion, hit Jinx, knock them together. We do get her heal, which is great. And it's going to give my bot lane a massive advantage. Jinx is going to be kind of low. She's going to struggle to farm this massive wave now. If we had a Leona, Thresh, Blitzcrank, or any kind of champion with any kind of CC, that would have been 100% a guaranteed kill. Zac's initial gank is very scary, and most of the time will lead to a kill, if not at least a flash. In the next game, I did the same exact thing. I did the same exact clear. I'm going to walk through this bush this time since the enemy bot laners are pushed up. I'm going to enter in with my E, put it a little bit behind her, toss out my Q, auto a minion, pull her back in, and I have red buff, so I'm going to try to do my best to stay on her. Auto attack slow, auto attack, turn onto the bard, he flashes away. Now I'm going to walk away as if I'm leaving, but I'm really going to stay in this bush. 9 times out of 10 this does work. I've even done this in a higher diamond and they don't expect it. You really want your E to come back up off a cooldown. Bard walks up, land my Q on him, and then I auto the minion immediately. Then I use my E. He has no flash, so it's a guaranteed kill. In general, this is how you want to play the early game of Zac. Just cheese the bot lane. Now if you are on red side of the map, you're going to do the same things. Clear out your raptors, red. Then you're going to clear out your golems and then gank the enemy top laner. They won't expect it and it will usually lead to a kill, especially if your top laner has some CC. Pro tip, the enemy jungle will see you ganking the bot lane. If you're in lower elo, they won't even touch your jungle. But if you are in higher elo or if you have it warded and you see them going into your jungle, go into their jungle after you gank the bot lane. Usually their Gromp and Wolves will be up since they're in a hurry to go from their red, blue to your blue. This will also work out really well since you just ganked the bot lane. They probably won't have their flashes and you'll be even closer to them, so you'll be able to gank them again very, very soon. If the enemy jungler is something like an Amumu or Morgana, you won't really have to worry about them taking your jungle since their clears are so slow, so you could just go to your camps. But if they are someone like a Lee Sin and you're worried, just go into their jungle and I guarantee you at least the Gromp will be up, so your mission won't be for nothing. If you're already coming up behind the enemy champion and they don't have a built-in dash, there's nothing wrong with just walking up and using your Q first. That way you can't risk missing your E. Already land the slow, and I know this Vel'Koz is going to want to juke, so I hold on to it for a little bit, then I use my E, charge up ulti, and then I go onto the Poppy. If someone on the enemy team has proven that they consistently keep trying to dodge your E, or you can tell they're trying to juke it as you're charging it, hold on to it because they're going to juke themselves to death, and as they keep juking, your teammate will be able to get onto them and you'll be able to land your E much easier. And of course, only use your ultimate after you land your E, that way they can't just walk out of it before you reactivate it. After you're level 4 and you have more than 1 point in your E, you'll be able to gank from a lot more angles. In this case, Vel'Koz was pushing up mid. I just ran up behind him. He has really nowhere to run to. After he's stunned, I then use my Q on him. That way I can't miss it. Then I auto the minion to slam them together and hold him down for even longer. For a really tanky champion, Zac has fairly fast clears. So if you ever see the enemy jungler recalling or on the opposite side of the map, feel free to jump in and steal their camps. You'll do it really quickly and you'll put them really far behind. Getting this extra experience is also really important on Zac because he is so dependent on the level of his E. The most effective time to use Zac's ultimate is right after you use your E, assuming you knock them up. After you've knocked them up, just simply hold down your ultimate, charge it, and then launch them towards your teammate or into one of your own turrets for the extra damage. Now, if you're grabbing a tank, you might not want to throw them directly into your team, so maybe throw them near your team, but not actually right into them. Zac is still a huge threat even when he is low on HP. If your E is up, don't be too afraid about going in on the enemies as long as your passive is also up. You'll almost always catch them off guard, and the enemies will typically overstay or overcommit trying to finish you off. Plus, if your teammate has teleport, they can teleport to your goop to keep you alive and the enemies can do nothing about it. The two easiest ways to land your E on Zac is if the enemy is already CC'd, or if you're using your E whenever they can't see you. So whenever you're behind a wall is one of the most effective times to use it because the enemies don't see it coming, and by the time they see the shadow, it's already too late and they're going to get knocked up. A huge mistake I see Zac players make is with their ult placement. They'll snatch the enemy up, they'll even land their E, but whenever they do this, they ult in the wrong direction. For example, here I'm going to ult behind the wall, knock her up. I see Anivia uses her ult, so whenever I use mine, I'll just go straight up and down on top of Anivia's ult. I don't want to launch Poppy out of the Anivia ult because then we'll be losing out on a lot of damage, and it will also make it more difficult for Anivia to land her skill shots. Just one more time, let's break it down. I land E, I get a good knock up while she's in midair. Now I'm going to throw out my Q since she can't dodge it. I landed on her, and now I'm going to hit the turret to collide them together. I had nothing else to use, plus the turret can't move, so it's easy to land. Now I'm going to immediately channel my ultimate while she's still stunned from my Q. I'm going to go straight up and down on top of the Anivia ult. And if Anivia were to throw out a skill shot, she wouldn't miss it since I was just holding Poppy in place. This is really important in many team fights, because if you ult them in a different direction while your mages are throwing out skill shots, you're going to fuck up everything. Don't be afraid to use your E to get around the map on Zac. It has a fairly low cooldown in the late game, and it's really important to be in position than it is to hold on to your E because you don't want to waste it. So now that I'm already in position, I can Q onto an enemy and start stunning people. My E is almost already off of cooldown, so I can jump over the wall here in a second. Jinx is posting up. You almost always want to go for the AD carry. They're the only one who can kill you. I land E, ult, toss her in, and I ult towards the Vel'Koz. I'm going to melee the turret because it's the only thing to have to melee. After he's stunned, I'm going to use my E to hit him. And now I'm just going to back off since I don't have any teammates or the damage to kill him under turret. I see Anivia is coming, so I want to go in now. Charge up E just enough. Throw it out. I'm going to hit him with the Q. I'm not going to melee the turret because I don't want to go that deep. I'm just going to hit the minion and then back off, and Anivia does pick up the kill. In team fights, you just need to make sure you play around your cooldowns properly. If an ability is up and you're near an enemy champion, you probably should be using it since they are on such low cooldowns. You need to also go into the practice tool with Zac and test out how far your E can go. There's a lot of situations where you don't actually want to charge up your E and you just want to use it as fast as possible to get over a wall before the enemy can hook or CC you to stop you. So you're going to want to go into the practice tool and test just how far it can go. I really suggest testing how far your E can go on each level. So your level 1E, level 2E, level 3E, level 4E, and level 5E. Also, you're going to want to practice using your ultimate to escape. Zac's ultimate is really a surprisingly good escape tool because he cannot be interrupted while channeling it. The only way an enemy can follow you is if they have a dash themselves or if they get close enough to where you suck them up with you. Usually though, if you're trying to get away and your E is down, this is a really good tool to get over a wall or just to make some distance in between you and the enemy. And that is going to wrap up this video on how to play Zac Jungle like a pro. If you guys did enjoy this video and want to support the channel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me out immensely. My name is KingStix, and thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.